Hey there, and welcome. This is day 23 of Weekends Web App, the stream where we're building a web app from start to finish, all on stream, all live. We missed an episode due to some issues with streaming, but it looks like everything's back in order right now. So we're just gonna roll on like everything's as it was. If you want to follow along at home, you want to pick up the repo that's existing at github.com/weekendswebapp. Sorry, github.com/weareoffcider/weekendswebapp. Once you've pulled that repo down, if you want to start right where we're starting right today, you want to check out day 22, and that will get you started right where we are today. Now, where we ended up, and I'm a little unorganized tonight, so let me just get a few things up and running. Let's bring that across. All right, so if I just run up the server, we got our view layer ready for sort of a bit more. We got our renderer rather a bit ready for a bit more, and there'll be some views that don't work, and that's kind of fine. Like this one here, we don't have the entry view bundle, and we're just going to sort of leave that as it is because all of those views we don't actually need. They're not forming part of our app. We were only testing things, right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at just putting down some tests for our routing and our rendering, because we never really did a particularly good job of that, and it won't hurt to properly address those. To remind you where the state was, we tested a lot of our platform layer, but our route matcher and our renderer, we just have no tests for them. So that's what we're going to try and address today and see what we can do that will make sense for us. So that's what we're going to jump into. Why are you not behaving, computer? Why can I not type? Well, I can fix that. I'll just start a new terminal session. Yep, we're good to go. So if we look at app.ts, we'll see how we're setting up our routes. We can see we've got home, we've got entry, about, author, all that good stuff. And what we could potentially do is delete all of this code. We could potentially delete all of it. But we do need to make some tests for our router and some tests for our renderer. So we're probably going to use that code somewhere else. But so we'll try and find a place to put them before we sort of completely remove them from the place from where we've got them. But before we go into test the whole system as a whole, let's bite off some smaller things that we can test. So inside routing.test, I mean, we could potentially break this out and start to think about the matcher as a whole. And let's have a look at what we have here. Now, I did actually use this code in another concept, and there was this there was a lack of sort of the idea of, say, a root path, because not always is your app going to be right here on the root slash. So we don't actually have support for that. But and that's something that you can sort of do pretty easily, like if you say added something to the root stack. And in fact, I might do it just to sort of demonstrate what I mean. Yeah, so here in routing index, we've got this concept of a route stack, and at the moment it leaves a lot to be desired, because all it is just routes. But what if we say had a root path as well? And that root path will give us an idea of, okay, what is the baseline of this path? Where do we start looking at all of these URLs? And the funny thing about this is we will just use our route stack, considering the root to be just a blank string. But that gives us a little bit of room if we say wanted to have a domain for, say, our application, and then we had the app living under /app or something like that. Then we could easily accommodate that with /app being sort of our root of our application. So this sort of gives us a little bit of flexibility, which is why I want to put it in there. Now, we're not really going to do anything with it for now, but I just wanted to put it into the structure just so that we can potentially address it in some of our testing. Now, so we've got this route stack, and we've got these matching functions, and that's sort of going to be first cab off the rank in terms of what we deal with. So let's jump back into routing test.ts, and you'll see that our tests largely fail when it comes to, we'll just change the scope here. Yeah, that's giving a bit away, isn't it? It's giving my whole streaming situation away. Give me a moment and I'll fix this, because that's not at all what is supposed to be happening. Yeah, this isn't giving away any stream keys or anything like that, so we're safe for now. Let me change this over to a new place. A bit meta, I know, but now we're back into where we want to be. Yep, there we go. Okay, apologies for that. Didn't realize my stream had recently upgraded my system, so what must have happened is what's it called, the monitor configuration must have lost track of what it was doing. Anyway, that's all good. We're back in business. Yep. Okay. So back to where I was talking about. So we have this route matcher tests, and that's not really going anywhere for us at the moment. So we need to fix up these last little tests and then expand that to cover the remainder of the routing system. We'll try and hit the routing system, and then we'll handle the rendering system after that. And we'll just see how far we go today. Yeah. And we'll just go from there. All right, so the match path to route. So what have we got here? Now, none of these are even particularly useful. Yeah, these don't exercise any functions at all. So these tests are worthless currently. So we can pretty much get rid of all of them and then start from scratch yet again. Okay, so we need to be able to build a route stack first. So describe route stack. So it can build a route stack using methods. So we can build a route stack using, what is the function called? Add route. So let's just address that particular use case first. And we can steal some of this stuff first, because that is essentially what happens, right? So we do this, and we'll bring in all those types. So those come from route stack here and add route, and we'll bring them in from our index file. And we should be able to do that without it crashing. Let's just test that first. So that's all good. In fact, I'm got to clear this grep. Start of the route stack. So we can build a route stack using add route. That is all good. And in fact, what I might do is I'll scope this in the concept of routing. So that should give us a bit more, just make it easier for me to hit all of these tests at once. Okay, so that doesn't crash, and that's all good, but we do need to have some sort of expectation about this system. Otherwise, it's not really very useful. So let's just do a console log on the route stack and just assume that we'll just inspect it, and then if it looks like in the shape that I want it to be, then I'll just assume that that's sort of like I'll make an expectation that that's what the structure that comes out. So you can see here we've got root path here, and then we've got the routes of the structure here, and I'm pretty happy with that. So I am going to just what I can do, just cheat a little rather than typing it in myself. I'm going to JSON.stringify it. And that should allow me to bring that in here. So we'll put that together. Yep, that will do. I'll break it there, and then I'll break it there, and then break there, and break here. And that gives us just some sort of test data that should handle that particular case. So that's our expected route stack. And then we're expecting route stack to be typing, here we go, yep, to be equal to deep equality with expected route stack. So let's just see if that test works for us. Good show. And let's break the test just to make sure. So this is a common pattern, you may have remembered it, is just to, it always makes sense to break the test before you consider it good. Because if you just get a green test and go, all right, yep, job's done, you might find that your test is not actually built as you expected it to be. Like, it might not actually be exercising your code in any way. And it's important to be able to check that by having just breaking the test. And that'll do for now. We don't need to go into too much detail. Adding route stack is a super simple concept, so we don't have to do much more than that. Next off, we will do some route matching. So this time we will have ourselves a route stack inside here, and we'll build it out under this same expectation. If that crashed, then I mean we'd get ourselves a crash, and that would follow through, and then we'd be able to work from it. But yeah, we'll use this route stack as our matching setup. So we need to match path to route on parameter free routes. That was what that first test was. So we just want to match against either the home page or the about page to test that one. So here we'll be jumping into matching. And I mean, like, the structure of this code is not the greatest, or like, rather the folder definition of this code, not the greatest. We could probably do some additional separations, but yeah, like I doubt I'm going to be touching it too heavily, and I'm going to have the tests in place, so I'm not too concerned about refactoring it too heavily just yet. So for now, I'm just looking to do these tests and make sure everything works as we expect it to. So let's address this first test here. All right, so we want to match path to route. Okay, and this is a matching a path against a particular matcher. So this function isn't even working over the route stack as a whole, which is interesting. So that's only in the get URL state that we actually need that. So let's address some of these matches and see what's meant to come out of it. So if we were to, well, I don't actually have the methods I need. Let's grab match path to route and get URL from matching, because we will need to test matching URL as well. All right, so const params equals, if we match path to route, and say we had a route where slash about, and it should be almost obvious that we will come out of this with absolutely no parameters whatsoever. So we would expect params to be equal, deep equal, let's just do deep equal for all of these, and we would expect it to equal that, but just to test that it breaks first, I'm going to start off with something like slug equals slug. So I'm going to break the test first and then fix the test. So you can see here, expected an empty object to be deeply equal to slug slug is not the case, so we have to fix that. Now let's do a test here and we're good to go. Okay, so here's some basic ones here. We'll do it for both of these. So we'll do it for the root URL as well. So all of these are expected to come back as blank objects because they have no parameters. You can see there, still working, still good, all good. Okay, so if no match, return null. And what I might actually do, real quickly, is make this describe match path to route. Because that's really what this one's about. This is exercising a particular function in a particular way. So let's hit that particular thing. So here, what we're intending to do is have the path and the match be unequal, and we're expecting to get this sort of behavior. And let's just change this to true, break the function, see what's up. So you can see here null equals true, that's no good. All right, so, and we can do a test against a something with a slug. So for example, let's do something where our matcher, which one's meant to be the matcher? The second one is meant to be the matcher. Let's say our matcher is expecting a parameter, and this one doesn't provide a parameter. This should be invalid, because even though the first segment is matching, the second section is not matching. So let's see if our test works in that case. It seems to. Make the test go red real quick, and we're good to go. No worries. Okay, so we've got the no match, and then we've got the match on parameter free routes. Match path to route, and I'll get rid of that word works because it's sort of implied by the test. On parameter. So on parameterized routes, which is stuff like our entry slug, we should be able to get the slug out of that one. And let's say so here we've got a match here, and that parameters we would expect to equal what's the word? We would expect it to equal slug. This is the article. So our parameters are always returning strings, and that's sort of our expectation there. We'll do something different there soon. Okay, so that one worked. Let's just break that one real quick. Okay, you can see there the difference. Fix it. And we'll just do one for the author ID as well. And this time we will just check and make absolutely sure that our, we have a number in the ID section. That number should return as a string. So it'll be something like 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. All right, test succeeds, text fails, good to go. All right, so that is pretty much everything we need from our matcher currently. As I said, eventually we'll like address the concept of what if the absolute baseline isn't the root of this app, but this will do for now. All right, next up we need to handle get URL. So in this case, we are actually using this route stack, and in fact we can move this into there, give it that isolation. So now we're looking at rendering particular routes in particular ways. So let's start off with it. Two strings. So we'll just get our parameter free routes correct first. So let's check that. Let's check that one out first. So URL equals get URL, and what am I doing? So we'll give the route stack, and then we'll give it home, and we won't give it any parameters in this particular case. So that one there, we would expect URL to be equal. That's incorrect, but I might as well break the test first rather than second. So you can see here just the slash, and the slash is what we want. And let's do the same for our about page. So we'd expect that one, we'll break it again, and then we'll fix it. Yep, so slash about is what it expects. That's good. Okay, so that's the parameter free routes out of the way. Renders parameterized routes to string correctly. So now we're looking at our entry, which expects a parameter of slug. Give it the slug. Now what have I done here? Oh, whoops. Yep. Okay, and we'll do the same for author. And we'll give this one a number just for good measure. Okay, well both of these will break, so let's fix them one by one. So you can see here, entry the slug, that is what we expected, so that's good. I can type that one in and roll with that. And then we'll break the other one. You can see author 1, 2, 3, and that is also good. Sweet. Okay, so we've got our route matcher sort of handled. Actually, we've got one last thing, which is what happens when you give it a bad route. And we're expecting this to happen, this 404 route not found. So let's check that. So renders 404 route not found when invalid route given. And we don't really have any behavior if a bad... Oh, we do have some behavior. Yeah, we do have some behavior if a parameter is missing, so we can test for that as well. So let's just test for the route not found aspect as well. So we'll do this, and you can see here, that looks good to me. Broke the test first. So let's fix the test now. And then the next one is if a parameter not found when a parameter is missing. So this would be something like entry, and instead of slug we did SLU. So in this particular case, we would expect it to render entry parameter not found. You can see that there. And it also shows up in a warning. So like, you know, there's nothing sort of, like the app's going to keep on running, but it will give us sufficient warning so that we can fix it while we're doing our development. Sweet. Okay. So that gives us our matching. Now, one thing we haven't done yet is we haven't actually sort of done any testing on our state. But I mean, part of the benefit of Redux, like one of the big benefits that is touted for it, is that it's easy to test, and we may as well dive into it and see how that particular theory goes. Right, so now we're going to be describing. Now I could split these into different files, but I don't really feel the need to. So here we're looking at testing routing state. So here we can, let's just bring in the whole bundle, I'm thinking. Because that is the thing that will end up being delivered to various places anyway. So let's bring in that routing state bundle. So that has the actions, has the concept of the store. Not that we necessarily need the concept of a store. So let's sort of dig into this a little bit and see how we go. So if we were to start off, go initializers. Now I'm just putting this really in really dumb terms, but essentially we want to be sure that the state initializes with the correct thing. So all we're doing is expecting that routing state bundle. We're expecting it to be deeply equal and I can't really think of a better way to do this than to just provide the details of what it's meant to be. One day there might be better ways to do this, but for the moment that's what we're expecting. This current path window.location.pathname, and that she's good, right? And at this point, see, if I have that expectation, then I'm assuming that this is now a browser test, which it is. You might remember from a while ago that I made tests be the name of anything that can run in Node, or in it can run in Node, or it can run in the browser, and browser test the name for anything that can only run in the browser. So if we were to sort of run yarn test here, we'll probably see a crash. Yeah, you can see this window is not defined in this attempt here. So that's sort of that's the clear signal that we need to change that particular one to browser test. So we'll rename that now to routing.browsertest.ts. Daisy. All right, routing browser test. Okay, and we should still be good to go, which we are. It's very good. And now we can carry on. So we've got our routing state, which is initializing correctly. We don't have a lot of complex state actions here, so it should be pretty quick for us to delve in through these particular ones. Right. So the first one is change current path. And the lucky thing about this is I don't have to do anything with window.location.path. Like that's not path name. That's not something that's meant to be important in this particular space. So that's kind of handy. So what we're going to be looking to do, if I think about it, is we're going to be spinning up. So we'll have ourselves an initial state. And then we will so we'll run ourselves the reducer, which is routing state bundle dot reducer. So that's a function that we'll be calling with initial state and then an action. In this case, that action is routing state bundle dot actions dot It's not giving me the actions. What's it called? Change loaded route, or change current path rather. And what I might do is I might separate this. And what is the path going to be? Let's just make it say author. And then as a consequence of that, we would expect state2 dot current path to be equal. I don't need to be. Right, and then it should equal author. That's our expectation there. So let's break. Let's do that. Then break it. All right, so we're looking good there. All right, next up, change loaded route. So this time we're pretty much going to have the same thing, although this time we have change loaded route, and that one's asking for a route name and some params. So let's do just that. We'll give it ID/slug, or we'll just give it some numbers. There we go. So now we've got change loaded route. We give that the action, and then this time we're expecting a loaded route name to be equal to author, but let's try it against something that'll break it, like auth. And loaded route params to be deeply equal to ID 1, 2, 3, and we'll break that one before we check it off. Okay, so we've got auth equals author. That's good. So we can fix that. And now next we've got ID 1, 2, 3, 4, ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 rather. So that one is good now. So we've got our basic tests in place for our routing state. Good to go. All right, so that's the easy stuff to test out of the way, and now we have to handle the actual concept of the router. This is a little harder to test because of all of the things that it's meant to interact with, because we have to have a store, we have to build up that store, we have to make use of that store, and it's meant to interact with this concept of state. So we need to bring in a few different dependencies to actually do this test. Just the way it is. And in fact, because of the nature of that, I'm going to brand it a bit differently. So this is more of an integration test. If we're talking about the hierarchy of tests, there's the concept of unit tests, which are very small, very finite, and then there are like they'll just concern the function. They'll be very limited in scope, and you're meant to have heaps and heaps of these, and these run real fast, right? Integration tests are meant to be more across the board. They have two different things, and they need to interact with one another, and that's the only way you can know whether it works. Pardon me, sorry. So what we're looking at here is more of an integration test, mainly because we have to bring in the concept of a store to make it work. So let's do just that. We'll look at all the things that we need to make a router work, and then we will start to bring that in. So here you can see we've got this concept of a route stack. We've got view bundles. We need a store. We need an actions bundle, and we need a context. There's a lot to think about, right? But hopefully it shouldn't be, we shouldn't need too much complexity to actually put this all together. So what do we need? We know for certain that we need the concept of a create state store. And we can get that from state. And we do not need the state bundle, the state store row. Sorry, the counter state bundle. We can restrict this just to the particular bits that we want to test. We need the ability to initialize the router, that's for sure. So we can grab that from here. We need a concept of view bundles, potentially. because if we don't have that concept of view bundles, then we don't have preload functions or anything like that. So we'll have to fake at least one view bundle. So let's grab the concept of the view bundle from renderer. Do we need anything else? So the concept of a context can be literally anything we want, and we can even provide it with no context at all. So that's not actually necessary. And we've already got the idea of a route stack. Right, so I think we have everything we need. So let's jump on down to the router. And yeah, we'll start off just like this. And what we'll do, we don't need any DOM elements for this, which is good. And we can probably do something where before the test, we just store the URL, because we're going to have to change URLs in order to do these tests, right? And then after that, then we can sort of test whether everything sort of behaved itself. That's what I think we'll do. Yeah, that's what I think we'll do anyway. Right, so we need a bunch of different things. We need this route stack. So we need a route stack. So let's deal with that. We need a concept of a view bundle. And it doesn't need to be a massive one. We don't need to do all of the views. So let's just see if we can... We probably do need an errors view of some description though. So let's just pretend we can get away with... So if we go with a view bundle, could we make something like this? And we'll just give it an any type for literally every aspect of it, because we don't actually need all of the different functions. We don't need the render functions in this particular place. We can stub them. So that's update, isn't it? Okay, yeah. So that's cool. Create. Oh man, I don't even remember the types for this thing. Let's go check that out. My apologies, it's been a while. Here we go, view bundle. So preload, initialize, and in fact we don't even need the preload function. So we could probably get away with just stubbing out a bunch of fake ones. As long as they have a view ID, then we should be all good. Alright, that's all we need. We don't need anything further. We do want to test whether preload gets called though, because that is kind of essential. So let's say that the about page will have a delay on it, and so what we can do is we can make it so that this particular page has a preload. And what we're looking at here is returning a promise. We'll return a new promise. And then we will resolve that. So we'll do a window. In fact, we should be able to just do set timeout. That should work even on a Node platform that way. Actually, we're already down the browser rabbit hole. So let's just do a window.setTimeout, and we'll do that after 1 second, right? So it would call the function resolve after 1 second. Set timeout executes after a particular delay, and it's measured in milliseconds. So that is 1 second there. Okay, and we'll also do a home view. without a preload. Let me fix that up. There's our view bundles. We'll flatten this up because I don't need all the lines to be sacrificed to it. Oops. There we go. So now we've got view bundles, which is good. We also need a store, which is ready to go. So we should be able to go const store equals create state store. And what comes back from create state store? Let me remind myself. We get the actions bundle and the store, don't we? Yes, I can see that there. Yeah. So we've got store and then we got the actions bundle. And it comes from this function of create state store. So you can see here, the moment you get into the realm of once you get into the realm of integration tests, you start to need to pull in a lot more things. But this is why it makes an awful lot of sense to try and limit the amount of things that you depend on, because the more things you put in there, the more difficult it's going to be to really pull all this together. We need some types, otherwise this is not going to not going to have a good time. And we should be able to deal with that by grabbing that from here. So if we go routing state shape and routing actions shape, we should be able to use that directly for the test. So those are coming in handy for us. So we've got routing state shape and then routing actions shape. Good stuff. Okay, so we have ourselves initialize router, and let's just see if the code runs first. It might not, might run, might not. So you can see that initialization now. Here we need to figure out what it is that we're actually expecting it to do on this initialization. So we're expecting it to populate based on where the heck you are. And I think the first thing it would do, because we're at test.html, it would go, hey, we're in the wrong spot. You'll notice actually that it put that slash, it automatically populated that slash at the end of the page here, and now we're broken. So we're gonna have to reset that every single time after we run the tests, because it breaks things. Yeah, you can see that there. It breaks things. So we need to have something that recovers after we run test.html. Otherwise, we're always going to have this sort of this thing that is breaking our routes. You can see there. So we're going to save our route. Going to go before the whole lot. We'll do that up here. Hell, we will even put this up here because it's sort of important that we do this. So before, and I'll just make sure it should run every single time, but if that doesn't end up being the case, then we'll have to deal with it. So we will save window location.pathname. And after everything, go window.location actually it's window.history.pushDate. And in fact, we'll do replace state in this particular case. We could do back, but then it would mess things up. So we're going to do window.replace state, and I actually forget. I don't necessarily forget, I just don't have to do it that often. Let's see where when we initialize the router, where is our handlers? Here they are. So you can see here this push state. So I reckon replace state is very similar, so we'll do that here. We'll blank that out, and then we'll replace the saved route. So we'll see how that goes. See if that recovers the test. Alright, sweet. Kind of unfortunate. You can see there, when I click on it, it ends up with this this behavior happening. So we don't actually have something that cleans up after ourselves, cleans up those particular listeners or anything like that. So possibly we want to leave some things behind so that we can do that cleaning ourselves. What I'm referring to is these particular functions here. We don't have anything that detaches them. So the tests don't run particularly cleanly because of that. And yeah, we've got this this change current path living just here as well. So what we might do is see how we can address those particular problems as well, because the moment we initialize the router, this is a problem, and we don't want to sort of keep on going with these particular problems in place. And this is, you know, this is all about like figuring out how do we clean up after ourselves. So let's start to pull this together. So we've got a function and it's called on body click. And this event has an any type and that's fine. And we've got this here, this what's it called? This pop state function. So we'll make that a function on pop state. And again, we'll have event any. The type safety isn't really helping us particularly there, so I'm fine with removing that there. So now we've got those functions there. What we could potentially do now, like I could go ahead and do something for unhooking from this store, but let's go with the assumption that we don't really need that just yet. And what we'll return is a function that uninitializes or cleans it up. So we're returning a function. And the whole point of this one is essentially to do the opposite of these particular listeners here. So now what we can do is, after we initialize the router, and let's pretend, so now we can do that, and down here we can do a router remove function, and let's just see how that behaves itself. Alright, didn't like that path, let's fix that up. Okay, so that all works, and let's just see what happens if I click on routing integration test. That's all good too, but you can see here this does not return itself, and that's probably because we're actually missing some information here. So you can see here with this save path, if I go into routing integration test, it still just has test.html. So that's not actually the whole path. There is something missing. So let's test this out by looking at something that has a different scope, so it's not messing with our router. And let's have a look at what window.location actually gives us. So we've got window.location.search as well. And that is the full context, right? You can see that there, that window location.search. So what we really want to have happen is we actually save window.location. In fact, I wonder if there's a property that just gives us the whole Megillah. I have a feeling the answer is no. But we could possibly get away with window.location.href. Let's see how that works out for us. So we'll jump out of here and back to all tests. Okay, well that seemed to not break there. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so so now we're good. So we're using window.location.href, and if we look at window history.replace state, if we do give it more, like if we give it the whole route, it will just know what to do with it, which is good. So now we're looking at sort of we've isolated this as much as we possibly can, while still giving us enough room to play. Like if we look at window.location.pathname right at this point here, you can see that window, like it added that hash there, but that's it, right? And that's cool. That's cool. Okay, so now that we've sort of just done all of the scaffolding around this test, let's start to exercise it. So we want to, after initializing the router, we would expect that the store would come back almost immediately. Let me just double check that. Almost immediately, it will come back with a normalized route. Yeah, it'll come back with a normalized route, and then potentially the store, something happens with the store. We need to figure out a way to sort of observe what's happening in here. And potentially what we can do is drop something into the view bundles here and maybe like listen out for whether preload gets called. That would be an interesting one. Just thinking of the right way to approach this. Yeah, I wonder if we can create an element, an A element, and put it inside body and then just see if that works for us, because that would potentially be enough to test this. Is just having some sort of element and just pretending that element exists, and then trying to make use of that to then exercise that. So let's try this out. Okay, let's so we want to see if it catches anchor tag clicks. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to create ourselves an anchor. So we'll do document.createElement, make it an A tag, and then we'll anchor, we'll go document.body.append child, and we'll chuck that anchor on there. And we've got to give it an href of some description, otherwise what's the point, right? So we'll go anchor.href equals, and we'll make it something that would match something in the system. So if we click this, this should give us a place to be, right? Now, when we do that, you should be able to sort of just cause a click to occur on it. And what I might do is just really quickly just drop in a console log after that click and see what the window.location.pathname is after that. Actually, we'll make it window.location.href. That's good. That looks good. It does pick that up. We can see that for real there. You can see this entry, this slug. That is pretty much what we want right there. So let's grab that. I might create this out here as well. This is a bit of a weirder test. It's not nearly as isolated just because of the nature of how much I'm testing. So here, we could expect window.location.pathname to equal entry.slug. And we'll break this test just to find out whether it will in fact break, which it does. That's good to hear. All right, let's fix it. Oopsie daisy. So it catches the anchor tag clicks, which is good. So in this particular case, I'm going to do the same thing again. I can actually clean this one up. So we'll do document.body.remove child anchor, and that'll get cleaned up. All right, in this case, I'm going to make a slightly different place. We'll make it author, or I'll make it about. And then we're going to go window.history.back. And because of the nature of where we are, the back button should then result in us being in a new path name, which is entry this slug. Let's just test that one out, eh? All right. Expected about to each. Okay, so it hasn't actually pulled back at that point. And I might just do a real quick check to see whether that is something that gets called, whether on pop state gets called when you do window.history.back. Oopsie daisy. I'm breaking my tests. Okay, here we go. So here, it gave up on things. And you can see here that my route did not get reset after all of this. So I might have to give this a little bit of a timeout. Yeah, I'm just giving this a little bit of a delay just to make sure that it actually happens after everything else has finished doing its business. Because there is asynchronous things that happen in this test. And you can see it recovered correctly this time. You can see that there. Anyway. So on pop state is in fact being called, but it looks like it is delayed. So we're going to have to wait on this test. And I'm just going to be a bit lazy with this particular one. In fact, what I might do is just check Redux's API for unattaching from stores, because if I can just listen to things that happen in the store, then maybe that's sufficient for us to keep an eye on when a particular thing happened. Subscribe is a function. Can we unsubscribe? Invoke the function returned by subscribe. Excellent. Okay. So in fact, this gives us something that we can put here as well. So here we can we get the unsub function after that. So we can unsubscribe from the store, and this is part of our cleanup here, and we're good to go. Okay, so we're looking to do the same sort of thing here. We're looking to subscribe to the store and observe when a particular thing happens after this. So here we want to subscribe to the store. We want to unsub it after we've done our check. So that check would be to, we'll just do a console log on the state first. Just make sure that everything's sort of in its right place, and in fact I need a done function in there as well. So, like, the world of integration is where things get a little more hairy, but these tests will be useful to us once we get there. Alright, so it gets called multiple times. Okay, where am I here? Alright, that should hopefully give us enough to work with. Let's see what we can do with it. So done gets called multiple times, unfortunately. So I'm just going to put a little guard here that means that I only check this function once. So if entered, then return, and then entered equals true straight away the moment it's in this function. So that should get us away from calling done a whole heap of time. You can see here it returns to entry this slug, so that looks good to me actually. You can see if I was to call that, say here, if I was to call that there, I should have about, which you can see here, and then it returns back to entry this slug on that pop state. So that is kind of what we want. Yeah, it works. Like it picks up history, it catches history back events. Okay, so not the greatest test, that one there, but we do have an expectation here. So we can go for expectation, expect state.routing.current path to dot equal, what am I looking to equal? I'm looking to equal entry slash this slug. And I'm aware that this is not the best testing doctrine because, like, this test, the success of this test depends on the success of this test, sort of. But I mean, that's sort of like, again, we're in integration testing land where I'm kind of okay with making just a few little, having a few little problems with our system, just so that we can get this test laid down. So that one works. We need to break it though. Okay, so there are worse ways we could go with that particular one. You can see this uncaught assertion does make it up as a script error, and it's not the most useful error to us. Like, we could potentially get more to it, but I could, like, that gives me enough to work with if I was working with this in a browser. So, which I am always going to be working with it in a browser. So, I'm okay with that as a behavior. Okay. So next up, we need to verify that the store we need to verify that the store is updating loaded route details. So in this particular case, maybe we just run an expect on the current state and go from there. So we know that that's going to be the case. Let's do a console log on it. So the console log would be, yeah, let's just do a console log on the state and just have a look around before we sort of figure out what we're going to test in terms of test details. Okay, that's an async test. We can get rid of the done on that particular one. There we go. Okay, what have we got here? So we've got loaded route name and loaded route params. Okay, entry is not a thing. So yeah, because we've only got the home and the about page. Let's change that and make sure that we've got an entry view. View bundle preload is not a function. Do we have cases where we're looking at home? I guess we do. Let's put home in there as well. It's an interesting one because view to bundle preload. Oh, I don't actually have a behavior where it's not handling routes that don't have preload. Well, that's good to know because we can deal with that now. Tests are kicking goals already for us. So if view bundle preload is optional, then what we're looking at here is something more like this, where we would go and say, all right, const. So the preload is either going to be view bundle preload, or it's going to be promise.resolve true. One of those. And then after that, we just do our preload. Huh. No compatible call signatures. But if we made that any, would that be fine? Oh, I see. Right. So we still need to accept view params and context. So that's more what we want to do. We want to get rid of the view params here, and then we're in good stead. So now you can see here, we either do the view bundle, or we do the promise resolve. So that's our preload sort of chain. And technically we could then off of that, but I don't mind this. This is all right. So now we've just our tests have just helped us solve an issue, I believe. All right. Yeah, so I need to do a ternary instead. So view bundle preload, then do this. Or do this. There we go. Now we're in good stead. Okay, so now we've solved that little small dilemma. Let's have a look at this one here. So we've got this state coming through now. And you can see that here, we've got a loaded route name of entry and a loaded route params. So let's do that. We'll just expect this state. We'll just run our expectations based on what's going through. As I said, like I'm kind of okay with the fact that all of these are sort of dependent on one another. Simply because we already know that these are sort of integration tests rather than unit tests in the way that they need to behave. All right, so I'll just break this test real quick, make sure that I'm doing things right, and it looks like I am. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is ensure that we're getting preloads when we're meant to have preloads. So, what's the best way to test this? Essentially, we want to make sure that the preload is called, right? And we could potentially do this. And I want to make sure not only that the preload is called, but that the next state render doesn't happen until that preload is truly done. So this will probably be the last thing we do for this this particular string. But yeah, this is sort of, again, it's sort of like, here's a bunch of things that are happening. What is the best way to do this assertion? So what I might do is just refer to Chai and see if I've got any sort of particular tools that will help me for this style of assertion. Otherwise, we'll just do it our own way. Nah, nothing time-based there. That's fine. We don't necessarily need that. what we really need is for after we do our thing. So this change loaded route only happens and then populates with only changes and populates after the thing is completely, yeah, it only changes and populates after the preload is done. So I think, yeah, I think we should be okay here if we were to do the so correctly calls and waits for preload. That's really what we're testing here. And potentially, I'm just going to save a little variable here called called preload. In fact, I don't need to do that. I can just do equals false. Okay, so called preload, I'm going to reset called preload to false here, just in case, for whatever reason, it got messed with. So called preload is false here, and then we're going to navigate to where we need to go. So here we're looking at going, and this time I don't really need to make the path go over. I can sort of just tell the store, I can dispatch an action to it, and that'll be fine, right? So routing actions bundle, state bundle rather. So I'm going to give it the initial, grab actions, and then what is the action out of it? It is, what am I thinking of? I'm just drawing a blank here, so I'm just going to reference the routing state tests. So change current path, that's the one. Because changing current path is sufficient to set the wheels in motion. That is meant to be the idea at any rate. And we're going to change the current path to the about page. Okay. So I'm just going to make sure that that runs without crashing first. Which it does, but we're not actually verifying anything at this particular point. Now called preload should have updated at that point, so I'm just going to verify that. Because there's actually no asynchronous code after that point. And you can see that there. That's true here. And then it will be false there. Let's just verify that. You can see that they're false and then true. So we can all right, so that's our first assumption there. The second assumption is that we're now going to wait for 1 second before the store dispatches a second time, or rather before the store updates a second time with our new data, with our loaded route information and whatnot. So how do we do this? We're gonna subscribe to the store again, and we're gonna have to store this little entered value as well. So yeah, our expectation is if we subscribe to the store, this shouldn't have passed over until we give it approximately a second to do its thing. So here we can break out and grab the state. And let's just test this state. We don't actually have a done function here. It just unsubbed entirely and nuked itself. Okay, so I might just have to do this done here. All right. Okay, so it timed out, which is possibly a start. Let's check out what it looks like in store.getState first. So that was while it automatically went to about. So that is already a bit of concern. It shouldn't have gotten there yet. It should have waited 1 whole second. And in fact, let's expand this out to 1. What I might do here, just so that we can see when it actually finishes, we'll give ourselves a timeout finished, just to make sure our testing code is right. Alright, well, you can see the timeout finish called here. So that is potentially enough. And for some reason the preload function got called twice here. 2 calls. That's interesting, isn't it? Well, the timing seems correct. Even if it double calls, which might be some other bug that we'll need to deal with. But yeah, there we've got our second. But we don't actually get it. The store subscription doesn't actually take and get it listening. Does this unsub ever get through to it? And for some reason the answer is no. And I might actually drop a console log in the code itself just to verify this, what's going on. Interesting. Okay. Alright, and that's going to call a bunch of different times by the looks of it. And it didn't call after that timeout finished. So that is potentially suspect. Yeah, that's an odd one because this should be coming back with the preload here, because this for this particular view bundle we've got this concept that this is for sure being called, but for some reason it's not then progressing through to this result here. Let's put that up there. Undefined hello test, hello test. There's no result in that particular case. Alright, so our break must be happening here. Our window location path name break. About entry this slug, about entry this slug. Okay. That makes sense. We do actually need to go to the route. We can't just tell the store to do its thing because otherwise it gets upset. All right. Well, if that's the case, then we just need to go window.history.pushDate. Always good to learn. Like, testing will teach you a lot about the code that you're writing. So this is absolutely not wasted time. And you can see here we've got that delay, how long it took. So that's fine. The fact that it gets called twice is a slight concern, but something I'm not going to sweat for now. But I am going to keep it in mind down the track. Some people say never put in to-dos, and this will possibly never get done, but anyway. Okay, so let's get rid of these console logs. All we need to ensure is that this took a duration, right? So this will give us a, so whenever you do a plus in front of a new date, that'll give you the exact time in milliseconds from 1970, whatever it is, Hammer time, Unix time, something like that. Anyway, Unix time, jeez, is it a, because I use it so little, I sometimes forget. Yeah, since January 1, 1970, of course. And if you do a plus on it, that'll bring it back in, I believe, milliseconds. Yeah, integer value representing the number of milliseconds. So that's kind of useful, because what you can do is, see, if we want to measure the amount of time between these two cases, now this is not super high resolution, but what we can do is we can just plus new date, and then we can do the same thing again. And you can see how much that is incremented in that amount of time. So we can measure that just by taking a timestamp at the start, taking a timestamp at the end, and just comparing the two. And that is sufficient, right? So we can go end time here. So we're testing a few things. We're testing that we are on loaded route name of about. And we're also testing that, so let's just see what end time, start time, end time. And this is, if we make it too tight, it's going to be flaky. So I just want to be really explicit about it. Okay, so you can see here, in fact, I should have done that the other way around. End time takes start time. So you can see that this measurement, like, yeah, it's about 1 second, but set timeout is not an accurate thing. Like, it does sometimes drop a few milliseconds, sometimes takes longer. There are things that can stall it. There's all sorts of things that can happen. So for now, I'm sort of happy if, as long as this is above, say, 500 or 600, then we're all good, right? So end time takes start time to be dot greater than 700. That's my expectation. And I'll just, I'll put it on 1000 just to try and break the test. So you can see expect 992 to be above 1000. So yeah, that's sort of what we're up against. We can't expect it to be that accurate. So we'll just do it this way. So we've got our test, it's running, and we'll just make sure that everything is running as a whole correctly as well. And you can see there. It took a little bit to remove that particular test, but it did run through everything cleanly, and didn't end up breaking. So I can continue to refresh. I continue to scope. I can continue to work with this stuff, which is good. All right, so we're looking good, looking happy. That gives us a good baseline to continue on to testing our renderer next episode. I'm pretty happy with the amount of progress there, and I didn't want to tackle the renderer straight away because that will be more complicated testing yet again. But this is a good ramp up into that. That's pretty much it for me, so let's finish off by committing what we've got. So what are we looking at again? Day 23. And then just So yeah, testing routing thoroughly in preparation for renderer testing. That sort of about sums it up, which is good. All right, let's push that up. And we'll tag it. And push up the tags. Alright, as per usual, if you want this code, you can go grab it at the repository. That's at github.com/weareoffslider/weekends-webapp and help yourself, check it out, and have a play with it yourself. That's pretty much it for tonight. We'll pick up again tomorrow night at around 8 o'clock and get stuck into testing our renderer. That's it from me. Have a good one.